Cried. You didn't see, you didn't ask, you didn't notice. It started quietly. There was no fight, there were no shouts. There was a slow disappearance. There was giving up disguised as calm. There was pain swallowed, as if it didn't exist. This person tried to keep things light, tried not to demand, tried to understand your silences, your absences, your closings off. Tried to smile when everything hurt, tried to stay when it no longer made sense. It wasn't drama, it wasn't insecurity. It was exhaustion. Exhaustion from feeling ignored, from seeming invisible, from giving everything and receiving almost nothing. And the worst part wasn't you leaving. It was staying without really being there. It was responding without listening. It was touching without feeling. It was saying I love you and still leaving this person alone in the simplest of things. Do you think it came out of nowhere? That she withdrew because she got tired of loving? That wasn't it. It was because she realized she was loving alone. It was because she understood she was begging for crumbs. It was because every gesture turned into a favor. Every presence turned into a burden. And yet this person cried for you. Cried with dignity, without scandal, without drama, without making you feel guilty. Cried in secret. Cried silently. Cried accepting that you wouldn't change, and that continuing to wait would be self-destruction. Today, you miss her, but you don't miss her the way she missed you. Because those who suffer first heal first, and those who only realize later, almost always realize too late. This person cried for you, but she doesn't cry anymore. Cried. And it wasn't a little. It wasn't just once. It wasn't on some random night. It happened gradually. It happened amidst noisy days where no one noticed anything. It happened between unanswered messages, between ignored voice notes, between the words you never said, but should have. This person felt everything, even what you thought you had hidden well. Felt the distance, felt the disdain disguised as hurry, felt the disinterest masquerading as exhaustion, felt the lack of commitment disguised as freedom, and still stayed. Stayed because believed that it was still love. Stayed because the heart has a memory. Stayed because every time it tried to leave, something inside still hoped for a gesture from you, for a phrase, for an action, for a sign, but you didn't notice. Or maybe you did, and pretended not to see, because it was easier to continue as things were, more comfortable, more convenient, more reassuring to know that someone was still there, even if they were being ignored. This person held back tears for days, wanted to believe that you were just confused, that it was just a phase, that it was work, routine, stress, wanted to believe that the emptiness still housed some feeling, but it didn't. It was just the shadow of what once was. It was just the echo of what you kept putting off. It was just the weight of giving your all and receiving not even half in return. And still, tried to keep the routine alive, tried to show affection in the details, tried to remind you how important you were, tried to make you see that there was still time, but you didn't listen, because it didn't hurt you. Because for you it was enough to know that this person was still nearby, even wounded, even in silence, even invisible, cried for you, and you never even knew. Never knew because you didn't ask. Never knew because you didn't pay attention. Never knew because you were too busy with the world, and never looked inside at the person beside you. That's where the break began. Not when the farewell happened, but when everything became an obligation. When the good morning turned dry. When I miss you became we'll talk later. When let's talk turned into silence. The pain didn't start when you left. It started when you stayed and stopped loving. This person cried with dry eyes, suffered in silence, kept everything inside, and still defended you. In front of others, in front of their own conscience, in front of their own doubts. You defended them, saying they were good, just lost. You defended them, saying they would change. You defended them even when they were only destructing. There was a day, a specific day, when that person looked in the mirror with swollen eyes, with a choked voice, and understood, I can't do this anymore. Not for lack of love, but out of exhaustion. It's cruel to love someone who doesn't notice, who doesn't care, who doesn't appreciate, who only realizes when they lose. And you lost. You can deny it now. You can try to distract yourself. You can seek solace in other voices, other bodies, other routines. But the time will come. That moment. Late at night. Or maybe in the middle of an ordinary day. A different silence will hit. You will try to fill it. You will try to rationalize it. You will tell yourself it was better this way. But inside, you will feel. You will remember the scent. You will remember the long messages. You will remember the care, the presence, the easy affection, the desire to make everything right. And you will understand it was love and you didn't take care of it. This person wasn't perfect. They had flaws, they had impulses, they had fears, but they loved you like few do, in a way that you might never find again, because nowadays, few people stay, few people insist. Few people love with real commitment. You had that and you didn't realize, or you did too late. This person cried for you, but they don't cry anymore, because they had to learn to live without you. They had to pick themselves up alone. They had to start over with the pieces you left behind. They had to swallow the grief of something that was alive, just for them. This person cried for you, but now, they no longer feel the same. They no longer dream of a return. They no longer expect anything. Do you know why? Because they learned to see everything you didn't say, to see everything you pretended not to notice, to see that love alone becomes torture. Do you think time will heal? It might heal, but it won't bring back what was broken, because some wounds no longer hurt. They harden, they close completely, and with that, the will to try again fades away. Do you still believe that person was difficult? That they were demanding? Too much? Then listen. They were just someone wanting reciprocity. You got used to being loved effortlessly, to receiving without giving, to hearing without listening, to having someone there, even if they were absent. And now, there's no one anymore. Not out of revenge, but out of self-love. That person learned that love shouldn't be a constant struggle, that love shouldn't be a charity case, that love can't be an excuse to endure indifference. Do you know what hurt them? It wasn't your absence. It was your coldness, your indifference, the way you went on like everything was normal while they were falling apart inside. You never saw it, but they cried in the shower, cried on the bus, cried silently at work, cried while smiling at other people, cried remembering the promises, cried for believing in each one of them. Do you remember the first time they went silent? That's when everything started to crumble. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a plea. It was a silence that said everything. And you ignored it, because you thought they would always be there, because you thought a strong love can endure anything, because you thought it was just a phase and that later they would settle down. But they didn't settle down. They drained. There's a point, a limit, that when someone crosses, they don't come back the same, and that person crossed, left, not out of pride, but out of necessity. They loved you, but began to love themselves a little more than they expected, more than you ever imagined. They understood that they needed to prioritize themselves, even with a shattered heart, even with a tight chest, even with longing hitting hard. And today you realize, too late, but you realize, you notice in the silences that are no longer uncomfortable for them. You notice in the curt responses. You notice in the one-way distance. You notice when you look for in others what only they truly gave you. Do you know what will hurt you more? Knowing that they forgave you, but don't want you anymore. Knowing that they hold no bitterness, but it also doesn't leave room. Knowing that you had everything and wasted it. Knowing that that version of her, so available, so whole, so yours, is gone. Not because she changed, but because you killed it, little by little. With neglect, with "we'll talk later," with "you're exaggerating," and now are you going to say you regret it? Are you going to ask for another chance? Are you going to say you've changed? You can try, but listen clearly. That person is no longer the same. And you're not the same either, because now you carry the weight of being the reason for the end. You realize it now that this person no longer responds like before, now that her messages have become just a line, now that her name no longer appears in notifications. You notice it in the little things, in the absence of care, in the lack of concern, in the strange calm of someone who once did everything for you. She still smiles, but not for you. She still talks to you, but without soul. She is still in your world, but her heart is no longer with you, and this breaks you down, because now the tables have turned. Now it's you who waits, you who notices every detail, you who misses her, you who searches for what no longer exists. Do you know why? Because you took too long. Took too long to see that she cried in silence. Took too long to understand that every "I'm fine" hid a "notice me." Took too long to realize that when someone starts to accept crumbs, it's because they've already lost hope of receiving the whole loaf. Do you think you can turn back time? You can't. This person has evolved. She had to grow on her own. She had to rebuild herself with the fragments of what you left behind. She had to learn to be enough for herself after nearly begging for your presence. Today, she looks back and feels no anger, feels no bitterness. She only feels the clarity of someone who has gone through their own hell and returned, stronger, more selective, more secure. She hasn't become cold. She has protected herself because she understood that love is not about insisting until you lose yourself. It's about reciprocity. It's about the giving and receiving from both sides. It's about understanding when to stay and when to leave. It took you a while to realize. She took time to leave, but when she did, she left entirely, with no plans for a return, no loopholes, no space for you to repeat what had already been done. Now the pain is yours. You are the one going through old conversations. You are the one revisiting audio messages, videos, and places. You are the one asking yourself where you went wrong. Want to know? It wasn't in just one place. It happened gradually. It was in the daily indifference. It was in the emotional absence. It was in the arrogance of thinking she could endure it all. And she did, until she couldn't anymore. But love that hurts, wears you down. Love that suffocates, poisons. Love that disrespects, kills slowly. Do you think that's an exaggeration? Then look inside yourself, look closely. Do you remember the last time she texted you just to say, "I miss you"? How long ago was that? Do you recall the last time she wanted to talk and you said you were busy? Busy with what exactly? Do you remember when she just wanted to be seen and you treated her like she was too fragile? She wasn't fragile. She was loyal. She was whole. But you confused love with obligation. You confused giving with neediness. You confused presence with dependency. And now you feel what she felt, only without anyone to listen to you, because now life has moved on for her, and it's standing still for you. You know you were wrong, but you don't know how to fix it, because there's no one left to apologize to, because the door that stayed open for so long is now closed, locked, silent. And you know what hurts more? It's realizing it wasn't a fight. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a bad day. It was you. It was your negligence, your absence, your coldness disguised as maturity, your tendency to run away every time the topic required depth. That person cried for you, but now she cries for no one because she learned, because she grew tough, because she had to accept, through hardship, that not everything you love is worth keeping. Do you still remember when she looked at you like you were everything? Today, if she looks at you, it's with a void on her face, as if she's seeing a stranger she's known too well. You ask if she's okay, she says yes, but inside, what she truly wants is for you to stop asking, because there's no more room for you in her days. Not in her pains, not in her plans, not in her answers. You've lost your space, not because she wanted to, but because you left it empty for too long, and now you want to reclaim it. But her time no longer belongs to you. While you were distracted, she was fighting alone. While you slept soundly, she was praying, trying to understand what she did wrong. While you said it's all fine, she was falling apart inside. And when she realized there was nothing left to wait for, she stopped, not from loving, but from insisting. And then you felt it. You felt the absence of her sweet good morning. You felt the lack of her concern. You felt the impact of the real silence, and you wanted to chase after her. But chasing after someone who has already learned to live without you is running against time, against your own memory, against a version of her that no longer exists. You still think about sending a long message. You think about saying everything you didn't say. You think about explaining that you were confused, overwhelmed, lost, but you know it won't matter, because those who cry in silence learn not to beg, because those who suffer in silence grow strong in a place you will never reach, because those who love too much once do not love the same way twice. You taught her not to depend on anyone, not to trust so easily, not to believe so quickly. And that goes with her. It goes to the next ones, it goes to the new glances, it goes like a scar. You were not just a story that ended. You were the breaking point, the trauma she will carry deep in her heart, the memory that still burns even in silence, and that no one can erase. Do you know what you've become? That name no one speaks, but everyone knows what it means. That topic that makes her gaze distant. That story you only tell halfway, because it hurts too much to remember the end. And now, Now you live with that awareness, with that silence echoing, with that weight that no one can lift. Because what you lost can't be repeated. Not with her. Not like that. Not with that intensity. She cried for you, but she doesn't cry anymore. You'll only realize the depth of this on the day you look at someone and can't love with the same purity, because part of you will still be trapped in that story, and part of her has already gone away forever. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment below on what touched you most about this topic.